The Glico Morinaga case. Japan's corporate terrorist. What would you do if your company was under attack? Imagine running a successful company, beloved by millions. Your products are on every shelf, trusted by customers, and then suddenly, your world is turned upside down. A shadowy criminal group begins making threats, sabotaging your products, and even targeting your employees. What would you do? How could you fight back when it's not just your company under attack, but the trust of an entire nation? This is exactly what happened in Japan in the 1980s. The infamous Glico Morinaga case shocked the country, as two of its most beloved candy companies were terrorized by a mysterious group known as the Monster with 21 Faces. This group used fear and manipulation to destroy not just these companies' reputations, but the trust that the Japanese people had in the safety of the very products they consumed. This is the story of how these companies were targeted, how the police were outwitted, and how the Monster with 21 Faces became one of Japan's most haunting mysteries. The sweet world of Glico and Morinaga. To understand the gravity of the situation, it's essential to grasp the significance of the companies involved. Glico and Morinaga were giants in Japan's candy industry. Glico, founded in 1922, was most famous for its iconic Pocky sticks, sweet chocolate-covered snacks that had become a staple in Japanese households. Morinaga, a company with roots going back to 1899, was another key player in Japan's confectionery market. Their products, from chocolate bars to their famous high-chew candies, were loved by the Japanese people. Both companies had earned the trust of millions. Glico's bright red logo and Morinaga's distinctive packaging were familiar sights in stores across the country. These weren't just candy brands, they were part of Japan's culture. The public's trust in these companies was absolute, until a criminal group decided to target them. The kidnapping of Katsuhisa Ezaki. The terror began on March 18, 1984, when the president of Glico, Katsuhisa Ezaki, was abducted from his family's home. Masked men stormed his house and held him hostage. They demanded a massive ransom for his release, but things didn't go as expected. Despite the ransom demand, Ezaki managed to escape after just a few days in captivity. While this seemed like a miraculous escape, it quickly became clear that the kidnapping was only the first part of a much bigger scheme. The kidnappers were not satisfied with just money. They had a larger, more sinister agenda, and their tactics were about to take an even darker turn. The emergence of the Monster with 21 Faces. It didn't take long for the criminals behind the kidnapping to reveal themselves. Calling themselves the Monster with 21 Faces, the group quickly became infamous for their ruthless methods and chilling threats. They didn't just want money. They were after something much more powerful. Control. Shortly after Ezaki's release, the group began to send taunting letters to the media, the police, and even Glico itself. They claimed that they had poisoned Glico's products and warned that they would continue their attacks unless their demands were met. To prove their threats were real, the group placed tainted candy on store shelves, leaving behind notes to alert the public and the authorities of the danger. The fear that these threats created was immediate and widespread. People began to avoid Glico products, wondering if they were indeed poisoned. The public's trust in Glico, once so strong, was now in tatters. It wasn't just the fear of poisoning that caused the panic. It was the realization that someone had the power to manipulate a multi-million-dollar corporation and the entire food industry. The campaign of terror intensifies, but the Monster with 21 Faces didn't stop there. The group didn't limit themselves to just one company. They branched out. Soon after targeting Glico, they set their sights on Morinaga. Their strategy remained the same. They threatened to poison Morinaga's products too, and once again placed tainted candy on the market. Morinaga, much like Glico, was a beloved brand. Its iconic high-chew candies were especially popular, and the group's threats were devastating. Morinaga's sales plummeted as terrified consumers stopped buying the brand's products. In a matter of weeks, the company found itself fighting for its survival, not just financially, but also in terms of its public image. Both Glico and Morinaga were now under siege. At the heart of these attacks was the monster with 21 faces, a group whose motivations remained unclear, but whose intentions were now undeniable. They wanted to destroy these companies through fear and psychological warfare. The police are stumped. The police were caught in a desperate race against time. They had to find the criminals behind these attacks and protect the public, but they were facing an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. The monster with 21 faces was not only elusive, but also highly sophisticated. The group sent their demands and threats in carefully worded letters, sometimes with detailed instructions on where poisoned products could be found. They taunted the police, mocked their inability to catch them, and seemed to always be one step ahead. Despite extensive investigations, surveillance, and the dedication of law enforcement, the criminals were impossible to track down. The police even started investigating several possible suspects, including former employees of Glico and Morinaga. But every lead seemed to dry up. There were no clear patterns, no fingerprint evidence, no physical clues that could lead to an arrest. To make matters worse, the monster with 21 faces continued to taunt the police, sending more letters to the media and mocking their efforts. The letters became more cryptic, and the pressure on law enforcement grew heavier. The public and the companies were terrified, and the police's inability to catch the criminals only intensified the fear. A pattern emerges: the group's tactics. Through their threats, the group proved that they understood the power of fear. Their actions weren't just about causing harm. They were about shaking the public's trust in the very institutions they relied on. They were attacking more than candy. They were attacking the social fabric that tied the Japanese people together. By poisoning products, even if the poison was never actually detected, the monster with 21 faces created an atmosphere of paranoia and suspicion. The group's letters were often signed off with the phrase, "the monster with 21 faces," and their mysterious identity only fueled the public's fear. The police, unable to make any headway, faced increasing public pressure. But there was still no breakthrough. The case became a symbol of frustration for law enforcement, a reminder that even the most sophisticated criminal organizations could evade capture. The sudden end to the terror. Then, in an unexpected twist, the campaign stopped. The monster with 21 faces simply disappeared. After months of terrorizing Glico and Morinaga, they left a final letter stating that they had ended their campaign. They had made their point. The reign of terror was over. But why did they stop? What had they achieved? There was no explanation, and no suspects were ever arrested. The police, after all their efforts, were no closer to solving the case than they had been when it began. The criminals had vanished without a trace, and the mystery of the monster with 21 faces was never solved. The aftermath. Legacy and unanswered questions. The Glico Morinaga case left a profound impact on Japan. The public's trust in food safety was shaken, and the confectionery industry was forced to implement stricter security measures. Companies that once relied on the reputation of their products now had to reconsider how they handled both internal and external threats. For years to come, the legacy of the case would shape Japan's approach to corporate security. But even as the years passed, the identity of the monster with 21 faces remained a mystery. Some believe it was a group of disgruntled employees. Others suspect a corporate rival, while some think the group was politically motivated. There are theories, but no conclusive answers. The case remains unsolved, and the question of who the criminals were and why they targeted these companies still lingers. The Glico Morinaga case is a stark reminder of the power of fear and how it can be used as a weapon. In a world where trust is essential, the attacks on these beloved companies shook the very foundation of society. Even today, the case stands as one of Japan's most chilling criminal mysteries.